Hello, everyone. Again, it's another day in the life as a military wife. And as seems to be the case lately a lot, I have been picking topics and had them all mapped out and just completely certain that's what I was going to talk to you all about. And then, like the day before, I changed my mind. And I did that again, but I think it's going to be awesome. So I'm excited to talk to you about, well, of course, it's Valentine's Day coming up. And I know this because I've started getting notices from my kids' teachers about what they're doing for Valentine's Day. And that is a good way to track most holidays if you're a parent. But anyway, I kind of wanted to put since I talk about relationships on here and how they affect military families and just that in general, we're going to put a relationship spin on Valentine/military life and have fun with it. I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so I realized I was talking just a little bit fast, so I'm going to try to take it down a notch on the speed. But anyway, getting to all of this. So oftentimes with Valentine's Day as adults, it's all about romantic relationships and your spouse and all that. I've always been more of an elementary school philosophy kind of Valentine's observer. I really like just giving out, this is what I love about you notes to all of my friends and stuff. And to this day, I will still buy Valentine's cards for my mother-in-law or my mom or my sister or friend, just whoever I feel like, needs an extra bit of shout out that they're awesome that year. And so that's me. Although I just like sending birthday cards and cards in the mail anyway. I feel like having to write my husband in BASIC and writing letters while I was serving a mission for my church just got me in the habit of letter writing, and I like it. And I'm kind of hooked on stationery. I love stationery. I have way too much stationery, but anyway, Valentine's is a great time to use some of that stationery. But I'm not just going to talk about Valentine's today. I want to talk about a couple different aspects of life as a military family and kind of anyway, let's just dig on in. So something that happens with military families is separations. It happens quite frequently. And separations can be anything for like 4 days or a week out in the field, or a temporary duty station somewhere else for like a month or a couple months, or a deployment that's like 9 months to a year and a half, or it can be a hardship tour that's like a year-ish, a little bit more than a year. So again, hardship tours, for those who may not be familiar with the term, are when a military spouse is assigned a change of duty station that their family cannot accompany them to. It's usually to like Korea. That's the most common one, is Korea. But there's other ones too. So, and there are times where you can get waivers, but a lot of times you can't get waivers because there's very few waivers anyway. And those can be really rough. So separations are hard in general. And my husband and I have been really blessed to, our congregation, our church has a program. It's for military families. It's self-reliance and resiliency for military families. And one of the things they talk about in this class that we're currently taking again, but we've taken in the past, is the emotional cycle of deployment. And that starts, so anytime there's going to be a separation, now you're going to go through these phases. There are ways to get through them more efficiently, but they're just things you're going to experience. And military families aren't the only ones who experience separations. One of my family members is in the medical field, and when they were doing residencies and stuff, they had to do this a lot also. And when they were doing rotations and med school and things. So there are other times and other people who experience these too. So I kind of wanted to just share, information that we are, have as military families that maybe not everyone's aware of. So anyway, the first phase is accepting the departure. And that is about a week to 6 weeks before. It's basically as soon as you find out. For us, unfortunately, I found out about my husband's hardship tour a year in advance, which was super detrimental in some ways because instead of handling it the best, I kind of moped for a year. So, but anyway, so spouses might protest or be in denial. Family members might feel tension. But this also goes on to the kids. You need to make time for family activities, but there's a lot of prep work that goes into these separations. So they may not feel like you have time for family activities and building those family memories. So it's important to do that. They might avoid the reality. There's, again, a lot of denial and sadness and frustration in this phase. The second phase is the detachment and withdrawal phase. There are healthy ways to detach, to start detaching and prepping for them being gone. And there are unhealthy ways of doing this. And one of the healthy ways is start coming up with a game plan of things you need to know that they normally do. My husband is super awesome about taking care of cars and computers. I could do more with the computers. I really don't have a clue when it comes to the cars, but maybe having them write down a list of, okay, our warranty for our tires is here. If you want rotations and balance, go there. We need to do an oil change here. This is who you call if this happens. And just making sure that stuff is set up, or just like get AAA or something. I don't know, but just get roadside assistance. But making sure those are good ways to start detachment and withdrawing. That's a healthy, proactive way of doing it. But sometimes we're emotional human beings, and so instead there's anger and emotional distance. They'll start, and I saw this when I had a whole year with my husband. Before he had to leave, like knowing that far in advance, I would get upset anytime he wanted personal time, anytime he wanted to do something by himself, because I was like, well, you're going to have an entire year to yourself, so you need to spend every waking moment with me and the kids. Yeah, that's not healthy. Like, people need personal space. And so, yeah, and the kids kind of did that too. We all got really clingy to my poor husband. So, yeah, it's like the super clingy phase. The next one is emotional disorganization. Okay, so that's the detachment and withdrawals. So there's like a clingy phase. Sorry, I'm mislabeling that one. But then there's also a lot of sadness or anger, like hostility. The kids, as they've gotten older, they've become more aware of when daddy's leaving, and we can mentally prep them a little bit more. But it's hard for them and there might be anger, there might be some resentment. And so it's good just to be aware of that. So yeah, phase 3, emotional disorganization. That's after they leave. So you're going to have to come up with new routines, and you're going to have to find out new ways of doing things. And we've talked about before, or at least I've mentioned before, that for a while I was disabled. So I could not do all of our housework by myself. And part of prepping for my husband being gone was finding someone to help me with the housework. And so, yeah, you're going to have to find new ways of processing things. You're going to have to find a support system, people you can rely on and talk to. Phase 4 is recovery and stability. And that's where you start to feel like you're getting it together, where you're a little less frantic. And the spouse goes through this too on the other side of the deployment. They have to come up with new routines and new ways of handling things, new ways of communicating with you and feeling connected. And then once you get into those routines, that's stage 4, where you start to get confidence. You can move on with things, figure out, okay, I need to take care of this, I need to take care of that. But then when you can do stuff still as a we, my husband and I always try to communicate as much as possible when he's gone. and still work on things together. And there's some like expenses he can pay when he's away. Not always, but, and so he still takes care of those. And so we'll still communicate about budget and stuff. We need to communicate about budget because there have been times we've both gone on spending sprees as emotional, emotional therapy, which was not helpful. And we blew our budget because we were not communicating. So that's something we've had to learn to do, is communicate really well with that. Anyway, and the next stage is 5, which is anticipating the reunion. That can cause anxiety and frenzy and frustration because you feel like you have to get everything back together and you want them to come home. And that one, I think, is really hard for the kids. And so and the problem with military stuff is it's not, they will be home this day at this time. You don't know when they're walking through the door. You never know when it's going to be. I've had friends who were told, okay, your spouse is going to be here at this time. You can come and pick them up. They showed up just to be told, oh, hey, their flight was delayed. It's tomorrow. And that was super hard on the kids, really hard on the kids. So just managing the emotions through that and trying to stay calm and find balance. And anyway, the number 6 is returning an adjustment. And that's what I've spent a lot of time on this, but I want to focus on for the rest of the thing. So returning an adjustment period, there is a huge adjustment period that happens with these things where you need a break and you need to just, rework things, figure out how to be a team again, figure out how to do family things again. Stuff will have changed and you're going to have to almost relearn how to be a husband and wife and how to be a family again, because so much changes in that time. Kids' routines change, they grow, they develop, you change, you and your spouse will have different experiences and be different people. And so one thing that we were introduced to, my husband and I, when he left for that hardship tour that I've mentioned quite a bit, I joined a book club because I knew I was going to need, for my sanity, I was going to need girl time. I was going to need intellectual pursuits. I was going to need to, because one thing I had realized from when my husband was in basic NAIT or training, anyway, previous separations, what I had learned was that I have 3 little children. And it is hard to carry on an intellectually stimulating conversation with a 5-year-old or a 5-month-old. And for me, I really kind of need that. I need to be able to just have adult talk. And so joined a book club, and one of the girls each month, someone would, like a different member of the club would pick the book we did. One of the girls picked The Love Dare, and I had not heard of that book before. And I started reading through it and I'm like, this is awesome, but my husband's deployed. So I bought him his own copy and sent it to him. And I'm like, we're going to do this on deployment. It's going to help our marriage. And then we started working on it. We're like, this doesn't work very good when we're separated. Because some of the things, like, you actually need to be interacting on a daily basis to do. So we have since, recalibrated and decided this is a much better reintegration, like coming home thing to do. And I'm not going to go over all of the different things, but it's a 40-day love challenge. Basically, each day you have a task that you are to work on as a couple, but individually. So you're both working on the same task, but you're doing it individually for your marriage. And let me explain. I'll give some examples. Day 1, for example, is love is patient. So the goal for that day is to not say anything negative to your spouse. Just go an entire day with just, I don't even know who taught me this. Maybe it was my mom. There was a phrase someone when I was a teenager would say. It'd be like, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, and don't fool around with Mr. In Between. And basically that's your goal for the day, is to accentuate the positive, just, focus on the good things, and eliminate the negative. Just like, let's not worry about that stuff today. I mean, there will be days and times to talk those things through. And as I've mentioned before, the military provides a lot of different forms of counseling, which are highly recommended during this transition period, just to kind of help you get on the same page. And that's actually part of the love challenge. It says to find a mentor and basically find someone who can help you in your marriage kind of negotiate those little hiccups that everyone has. And my husband and I have taken advantage of the military resources to improve our marriage. There's also marriage retreats, and marriage retreats are a blast. Not only are they a great chance to work on your marriage and use some like amazing, groundbreaking programs that are really expensive. People pay a lot for these, to go to these kinds of retreats and stuff. And it's through the Chaplains Association, so costs are covered. They've got childcare. It's just, they usually make sure you can have a date night, just the two of you, to talk things through. So marriage retreats are just awesome. And I'm not sure I've even talked about them before, but they have been also another really good reintegration process thing that we've used. There's these classes. The Chaplains Associations will sometimes offer classes to strengthen marriages. Besides the marriage retreats, then there's just marriage counseling that's provided for free. And honestly, it's awesome. Like, how many other employers provide free marriage counseling? I'm not really sure, but the military does. And considering how much stress and strain military families go through, I feel like that is totally a valuable asset, because it's so much easier for the soldiers to be able to focus on doing their job and being combat ready if they're not worried about their family, if they're not worried about their family's emotional and physical needs. So another one of the challenges is complimenting each other. And even just gratitude. Like, there's a bunch. Oh, I love this thing. I really do. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is something we all need in our lives. I really do think we need that. There are times where you need to choose to forgive someone. Because I've had this happen in my life. There are hurts that are big. And there's a difference between choosing to forgive someone and then letting them hurt you again, and choosing to forgive someone and then setting up a healthy boundary. And I think, at least for me and for people I've worked with through some of these things, one of the barriers to forgiveness is feeling like that's going to leave you vulnerable to be hurt again. And that's where boundaries comes in. Forgiveness is important because, again, and I think this was my mother or one of my youth leaders, I don't know, but they would always say that holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It doesn't work. Holding a grudge and refusing to forgive, it causes a weight and a bitterness in our, lives. And sometimes we have to just choose that. We have to be like, okay, I don't want to forgive you, but I want to forgive you. I want to be able to let that go. And really, that's what forgiving is. It's letting it go. It's not letting it fester in you. And there's a lot of times in marriages where you just need to let things go. Like, in every marriage, there's going to be, or every relationship with kids and in-laws and family, there's friends, there's always going to be things you just have to let go. Things that drive you nuts that just gotta let it go, forgive about. And when we forgive, it releases energy back to us, emotional energy and spiritual energy back into our lives. But then the important thing is, there are times where those things have been so intense, whatever the wrong is or the hurt is so big, that the fear is, okay, we're going to forgive them, but they're going to do it again. Well, forgiving someone doesn't mean allowing them to hurt you again. You then establish, and we've talked about this before, so if you want to go back and read my thing about boundaries, listen, not read. Anyway, podcast. Woohoo. Anyway, if you want to go back and listen to the thing about boundaries, but I'll just do a brief recap here. Setting in a boundary is recognizing that this is X, Y, or Z. So, for example, there's an individual in my life who is related, who is unstable and not the best influence. And I have had no contact with them for quite a while. I have been able to let go and forgive the things they did to me, but I recognize they're not the best thing in my life. And so it's like, okay, I don't have any negative feelings towards you. However, you're going to be over there. Like, you're just going to be over there. And that's a really firm, hard, rigid boundary. Sometimes you have to draw those with people. Be like, no, that's your space. I'm going to do my thing. And that's okay. There's other times where you can have more of a flexible boundary. And we talked about this. Again, I knew an individual who struggled with their relationship with a parent as an adult and being treated like an adult and feeling like an adult. And so what they had to do is like, you know what? I'm willing to come home and help you out and do things or whatever, but it's going to be on my schedule. It's going to be when I can handle it. And so they established, it was like one day a week for a couple hours, they would always go over and see that parent. And that was actually really helpful because then the parent had something to look forward to and they could plan and make it a productive time. And it fit around their schedule. So it ended up improving their relationship, that boundary. And so they had to forgive all of the nagging and guilt trips and all of the stuff that had happened previously. And when they established a healthy boundary, they were able to minimize the future incidences of hurt and improve their relationship overall. And that's why boundaries can be really helpful. And it's important for all relationships to understand boundaries. You need boundaries as an individual. You need boundaries as a couple. And I'm meaning not boundaries in between yourselves, but like a boundary that surrounds you two from everyone else. You do need boundaries that include your chillins or whoever's in your household. Maybe it's your puppy. You need boundaries. Maybe you don't want every kid in the neighborhood playing with your puppy, or I don't know. But boundaries are just a healthy thing to have in life. So that was one thing it talked about was forgiveness. And forgiveness is more possible when you have a good understanding of boundaries so that you don't feel like you're opening yourself up and making yourself vulnerable to hurt again. Another one that I really liked, and I'm not going to be sharing all of these because, again, some of these can be used for lots of different relationships, siblings, parents, friends, and some are just for couples. I'm sharing ones that can be for both, but love is faith is another one that I really enjoyed. And correction, misread that. Love is faithful, but in the sense of full of faith. And it talks about praying for your spouse. And we are religious, we pray. And I feel like that is something I don't always do as much as I should, is praying for my spouse and praying for my kids by name specifically. And that has, when I have done that, really been a blessing in our marriage and our family. And I have even prayed, I pray for friends when they're going through hard times too sometimes. But there's something powerful about naming someone specifically and asking for blessings in their lives. for their life. And just instead of just generally bless my family or bless blah, 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 like actually by name and expressing exact things that they're working on or need help with and struggling with. So that was one. And then going back and saying a gratitude prayer of expressing how grateful you are to have those people in your life. And gratitude is powerful. And we've talked about this before. There's actually scientific measures on what gratitude can do in your life. So check out that episode if you want to know more about how gratitude can bless your life. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that one. So like I said, it's called the Love Dare, and it's a 40-day challenge to improve your marriage. But the great thing about it is it's not just for marriages and couples. Some of these principles, like the ones I've talked about, can really be applied to all of our relationships. And relationships are so important. As human beings, we need other people in our lives. There is a really sad condition that can happen with infants who are not, like it particularly would occur previously in orphanages or massive care facilities where there wasn't proper, adequate care for these or enough people. And sometimes it was just there wasn't enough. And not that they wanted to do that, but there wasn't. Anyway, long story short, it's called failure to thrive. We need human connection. And these children, these babies, if they didn't get enough human connection, if they didn't get enough love, they actually would just quit thriving. Their bodies would almost just shut down. We need people. We need love in our lives. And so Valentine's coming up. Whether it's your spouse or your kids or a friend or a family member, maybe write them a note. Tell them why you're grateful that they're in your life. I honestly feel like there's a lot we can learn from elementary school. And having to send positive notes or, find positive notes, give positive notes to all of those around, the people we work with on a regular basis, our classmates, is a good thing. And so I feel like that's a skill or something as adults we could use more, is sending out those positive notes, giving encouragement. And that to me is what Valentine's is about, is showing concern and care and encouragement for those around us. Not just, going on a date and getting some flowers and chocolate or whatever from your significant other. Although also just a shout out, because I'm going to just say I am an Arizona girl, and I think that's the first time I've admitted to this. Arizona Statehood Day. Woohoo! Valentine's Day. So for all you Arizonans out there, we have something else to celebrate, because I'm a very proud Arizonan. Anyway, wrapping this up, I hope that you all have a wonderful Valentine's Day. I hope that you're able to do something for someone special, whether it's a parent or a friend or your significant other or a child, to help them understand how much you appreciate them and love them. And I hope that you get one of those wonderful little recognitions of how much you're loved as well. And that said, I hope this is helpful about separations and reintegration and all of that. So, have a happy Valentine's Day. Y'all take care. If there is anything you would like me to cover, please feel free, comment, send me a message on Facebook, send me an email. I do get input from listeners, and that does impact what I cover. And I am more than willing to cover topics that are of interest to you. Have a good week. You've been listening to Life of a Military Wife, and I am your host, Sam Wolf.